Hello, it is a Tuesday, which means it's time for another in real life video. This week, before we get started and take a question, because this week we are taking a question, just wanted to say that sometime this week, I know folks have asked about it, and I've posted on Blue Sky about it, but that doesn't really reach everybody who will ask the question, so we'll try and nip some of the incoming questions in the butt here. In the bud? We're gonna nip them either way. Hopefully. Folks have been asking if I will be playing Avowed, and the answer is yes, of course. I'm super excited for Avowed. It came out today to everybody, not just the people who pre-ordered the super special edition or whatever. I'll probably be playing it through Game Pass or whatever. We'll do a full playthrough. It should be up sometime this week, hopefully, right? When exactly, I'm not entirely sure. But hey, hopefully ASAP. I'll probably try to record some today, right? And then we'll see about when I can get it out and published and all of that, right? But yes, Avowed is 100% on the docket and is something that we're going to be doing ASAP. I'm super into it. Big fan of Pillars of Eternity. We've got Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 on the channel. They're a bit older though, right? The channel's kind of founded, the CRPG slot specifically on the channel, founded in no small part thanks to Pillars of Eternity. Anyway, sort of back to our more regularly scheduled programming here for the IRL videos. Let's see, this week we have a question, and that question is brought to us by a gentle viewer whose username should be somewhere in the lower third of the screen right about now. Let me bring this up. And they ask, do you like Euro board games or have a history of playing them? And I think for this, we'll probably broaden this out slightly. We'll take off the little adjective of sort of specifying Euro, because quite simply the answer is I don't have any experience with Euro board games, and I have so little experience that I don't even know what that means. I don't know what European board games there are that are of note. I have no idea. I have no idea. And this sort of, like I said, we can sort of spin out this, admittedly, this will be probably a bit of a short video, but true enough, I've had other people ask me, not sort of in the purview of, IRL videos and all of that, but more so just generally in the middle of a playthrough or whatever, right? Especially in CRPGs. But people will ask, oh, do you have a background or any experience playing something like any tabletop role-playing game? Do you play, any pen and paper stuff? Do you play Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder? All that stuff. Some more esoteric, more niche board games and pen and paper games, tabletop role-playing games, stuff like that. And the answer is no. I haven't really ever. I have limited experience with that. Probably the closest I've ever gone to playing it is watching/listening to other people playing it, playing them. I have listened to a couple Dungeons and Dragons, well, not even Dungeons and Dragons, but TTRPG, tabletop role-playing game podcasts, actual play podcasts. I've listened to a good chunk of the first, outing or so of Friends at the Table, mostly due to the fact that I really enjoy sort of the voices and takes of Austin Walker and Ali Akampora, I believe, who are on there and do some version of production and all of that. But ultimately I kind of bounced off of it, because I don't know, the sort of actual play part, I don't know, it just wasn't really doing it for me. I gave it a pretty good try though. I listened to at least a dozen of the podcasts and stuff. And true enough, I've heard that as with a lot of these creative works, sort of as the podcast goes on, production values sort of go way up as, they get more and more popular. hopefully, and they get like a bigger budget allocated to, be able to do what they want with the show. In a similar vein, I've listened to a pretty sizable chunk of There Will Be Dungeons, sort of not even helmed by, I guess popularized by Scott Johnson in his whole like podcasting sphere, because once again, like I like a lot of the people who appeared in that sort of tabletop role-playing game podcast. I listened to a good chunk of that. They did sort of their own custom rules spin-off situation where they kind of converted Dungeons and Dragons, I think 5th edition, into sort of a Mad Max kind of like wasteland theme, right? Which was pretty enjoyable. But once again, I kind of fell off of it. I think around like, this one I listened to for quite a while, for around the like 50 to 60 mark, right? Or count, or the videos and all of that. Mostly due to the fact that like they just took a while to come out, and by the time I got to the 50 or 60 point, I was like, I don't know how much more I'm into this, right? Sort of my hobbies and interests in other areas flared up, and that got me like, okay, I'm interested in this video game right now. I would like to watch more about this video game or listen to it. And of course, these same people who I enjoy will go on to talk about that video game. So in that sense, that kind of takes precedence. The big one as well, speaking of Pillars of Eternity earlier, sort of around the release of Pillars of Eternity 2, they sort of famously got the voice cast, or the cast of Critical Role to voice the majority, if not the entirety of the like core group of companions, right? Which isn't that wild of a consideration, given the fact that in Pillars of Eternity 1, sort of before Critical Role hit its peak popularity, they afforded their voices to some of the characters there, right? For instance, Matt Mercer, the esteemed and kind of ever-present voice actor, had played Adair and Aloth both in Pillars of Eternity 1, and of course would go on to reprise that role. And the new slew of companions that joined in Deadfire sort of showed up there. They were Critical Role people. I watched / listened to, I don't know, 2 or 3 of their early ones, and once again, I kind of bounced off of it due to similar issues wherein, just early production values were kind of like hit and miss, and then other things just kind of took my attention. In a similar vein, I think that was particularly true during, a few years ago when there was that big thing going around, that people were catching, I got particularly into the sort of, God, what's it called? I guess the McElroy brothers, podcasting empire. I got a little bit into that. I listened to a lot of My Brother and Me. I listened to as well. I tried out The Adventure Zone, which is also their sort of, Dungeons and Dragons actual play podcast or whatever you would call it. I tried that out, and once again, similarly, I kind of bounced off of it. So it's not for lack of trying, I would say, that I have sort of bounced off of these things. Sort of on the onset, right? Just let alone role-playing games, Euro role-playing games, just tabletop role-playing games and board games in general. I think I'd be super into them. I would be super down for it. Like, I love the sort of imagination aspect of it. For me, the biggest hurdle is what I think is the biggest hurdle for a lot of people. So, it's not really a unique answer in that sense, but, just getting a lot of people gathered around in one spot on a regular basis, right? I don't know. There's a point in your adulthood where, I don't know, it just becomes incredibly difficult to get this, to ensure that like the same, I don't know, 4+ people have free time at this exact time to show up in person, right? And you also run into the issue where, like, maybe your group of friends, the people who you know, or even like your family, they maybe don't, they aren't as into the hobby as you are. Thus, you know, it ends up being like a whole issue of, what if we just played a video game? Right? Because video games have sort of got the situation on lockdown wherein they're easy enough to sort of onboard people, right? There's a lot of sort of studied parts of tutorialization. You know, this, once again, this is sort of, I believe, an infamous part of learning board games, tabletop role-playing games, pen and paper games, anything like that, is onboarding, right? A lot of people, it's difficult to sort of convey that because oftentimes the person trying to convey it is they themselves somewhat of an amateur, right? This isn't like some studied, developed in a laboratory sort of way of them going about like, how can I teach these players how to play this game, right? It's not something that's been iterated on a whole lot, as you would have in the case of a video game, a multiplayer video game where there is a tutorial and that the tutorial has been play tested and to the ends of the earth, and they've tried to figure out what's the best way we can get people to learn how this game works and get them to keep playing and enjoying it, you know? A lot of time goes into that. Whereas if you're just someone explaining to somebody else, you don't really necessarily have the luxury, and you're certainly not being paid for it, right? So you're kind of at a disadvantage there. And like I said, the same sort of holds true for myself. Difficult to just get people together, difficult to sort of teach folks, because I think as well, I don't really enjoy the idea of being a dungeon master, right? I don't know how much I would want to do that. And every time I think about, yeah, maybe I could teach this group of people in my personal life, like the rules set of this, and get them invested in it. But I think the only way in which that would happen is if I were like the dungeon master, right? I would not be a player. I wouldn't be able to, like, you know, wield the power of imagination in that sense. I would be having to do it from the purview of dungeon master, right? And that, I don't know, that doesn't really interest me. I don't really want to do that, right? That seems like work. That seems like work to me. I'm doing other stuff, like screwing around as an actual player. That seems like fun. But setting up little encounters, trying to weave a narrative in a proper way that I would want to, I feel like it would take so much pre-planning to the point where I would be like, y'all gotta start paying me or something for me to do this, right? This is going to take up a lot of time for me to sort of think of like, okay, how do I want this story to be set up? How do I want it to tie into the overarching world and all that? Oh, I need to, I want there to be, if I'm doing it, I guess sort of perfectionist, not even perfectionist, but I guess that's the easiest way to explain it. Perfectionist tendencies will kick in. I'll be like, well, of course, if the player wants to do that, I want there to be, as I love in games and stuff, I want there to be some degree of reactivity, right? And like I said, it ends up just sounding like a lot of work, and I got a lot of other things that I need to do and that I would like to do. Lord knows we've got a backlog video and there's no shortage of stuff on there. So I don't know. I'm kind of settled on the fact that I'm probably never going to do anything like that. And maybe I'm okay with that. As fun as it seems, it's just too much of an investment and too much of a commitment. It just seems difficult. I don't know. Maybe if I get really old and I get sent to like a retirement home, or I elect to go to a retirement home, maybe people will be like playing D&D or something there, right? Maybe we'll be playing Pathfinder or whatever the hell in a retirement home. In which case, sure, I'll do it. I'll hit it up. Maybe that's the way to go about it. But I feel like, once again, why don't we just play a video game? You know, even more so with the advent of something like Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like that's such a good bit of onboarding for a lot of people. I think that's there and abouts my answer. Like I said, we've kind of extrapolated the question into just tabletop role-playing games and board games in general. It's just difficult to get a bunch of people together, learn a new rule set, and continue to do that for X amount of time, right? It's problems I have heard, right? Like I said, although I don't have any personal experience in the space, it's a lot of, there's a lot of spaces I do sort of travel in, so to speak. And you hear about people saying like, yeah, it's tough as nails to get all these people together and to sort of convey a rule set or whatever. A lot of people are like, yeah, I would love to play Pathfinder or whatever, or I would love to play this even more indie sort of tabletop role-playing game rule set, but it's so tough to get everyone on board with learning it, Already we have enough issues trying to get everybody to meet up for Dungeons and Dragons, which is about as approachable as it seems at the moment, right? As far as like cultural zeitgeist. You think I can get everybody into like Cyberpunk Red? I don't know. It seems wild. It seems tough. And like I said, I just don't know if I got the time for it. I don't know if I got it in me. I don't know how people manage it in the first place, right? I don't know how you do it. It seems I can't help but think back to my time playing like World of Warcraft and doing raids, right? Doing raids that required 10, 20, 25. I was never like actually raiding. I played during the advent of 40-man raids, but I never actually entered them. But then it was difficult getting that many people together to just play a raid in a video game, right? That was difficult in and of itself. There were always delays, people running late, people having to leave early, so you had to call it off earlier and all that. It was just a hassle, right? It was just a hassle. Sure, I liked the experience of it, but I really had to go in with an open mind of thinking like, I'm attending this raid in my guild, not for the sake of like, I want to partake in the actual mechanics of the raid. I want to go to Ulduar. I want to fight the Flame Leviathan. I want us to get in there. We cleared so much of the new Naxxramas. Maybe this week we'll actually defeat Flame Leviathan, right? No, I had to sort of recombobulate my thoughts and think like, okay, I'm going into this knowing that we're probably not going to, right? And it may sting because there may be points in time where like I'm doing significantly better than the rest of the guild, or one person perhaps is dragging everybody else behind. So I kind of need to go into it with the thought of, I'm just here for chilling, right? I'm just here for the vibes. I'm here to hang out with these people in maybe kind of a screwed up way for like an entire evening, right? That may go long into the night and may interfere with my day tomorrow, That's sort of the expectation that I had to set myself up for. And I don't know. I just don't relish the idea of doing that again and in a real life setup, right? It's even tougher when you remove the video game online component. And sure enough, there are people who sort of do TTRPGs online, right? There's no shortage of tools and stuff for that. I mean, good Lord, I think a lot of people right now are trying to, through modding tools with Baldur's Gate 3, trying to convert it into exactly that. We'll see how that goes, but that in and of itself is a little bit easier than actually getting people together around. So, like I said, it's not that unique of a response to this question, but I feel like it's one that's definitely relatable. I feel like there's no shortage of people who are into role-playing video games who think like, yeah, that sounds cool, but the logistics of it just ain't gonna happen, right? And I am firmly in that camp. All right, that ought to do it for today's IRL video. Like I said, hopefully I will be recording some Avowed here very shortly. I'm very much looking forward to it. If you watch this, if all goes well, I'll just be wearing the same dang outfit and all that. All right, until next time, please take care of each other.